The architecture of extraction, the exploitation tactics of digital platform, and the degradation of material reality. By Kevin David Mayo II. Erie Life Health and Surety. Power to the people. Copyright 2026. Erie Life Health and Surety. All rights reserved. The Patriot Act explained. How post 9/11 surveillance infrastructure became the foundation for corporate extraction. The short version. The USA Patriot Act, uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism act, man, I did not know that was an acronym, was passed 45 days after September 11th, 2001, with minimal debate. What it did. This massively expanded government surveillance powers. This allowed the warrantless data collection on American citizens. This forced tech companies to build backdoors into their systems, and this created legal infrastructure for mass digital surveillance. What happens next? The surveillance infrastructure built for national security became the foundation for corporate data extraction. Tech companies realized that they could monetize the same data gathering capabilities the government required them to build. And what began as government surveillance became corporate surveillance capitalism. The tools to fight terrorism became tools to optimize advertising, manipulate behavior, and extract wealth. The timeline. From security to extraction. 2001, the Patriot Act passes. October 26, 2001, the Patriot Act becomes law, fundamentally changing surveillance in the United States forever. Section 215, business records provision. This allows the FBI to demand any tangible thing, records, documents, and data relevant to terrorism investigation. There's no need to show probable cause. Recipients cannot disclose that they received the order. And this creates a legal framework for mass data collection. 2006, roving wiretaps. This section allows for the surveillance of a person rather than a specific phone or device. This follows the target across all communication platforms. Section 206 also says that there's no need to specify what's being monitored. Section 213, sneak and peek. This allows delayed notifications of search warrants, and the government can search property without immediately telling the owner, as long as they notify them. 2001 to 2007, building the infrastructure. Tech companies are compelled to build systems capable of collecting and storing massive amounts of user data, providing government access on demand, tracking communications across platforms, and monitoring behavioral patterns. These companies quickly realized, if we're required to collect all this data for the government, why don't we just monetize it ourselves? That takes us to 2007, the pivot point. The iPhone launches. Now everyone carries a surveillance device voluntarily. Facebook opens to the public. Social surveillance becomes normalized. And Google was already dominant. Search history equals behavior prediction. The infrastructure built for national security becomes the foundation for the most profitable business model in history, surveillance capitalism. 2013, the Snowden revelations. Edward Snowden exposes the scope of government surveillance. NSA collecting phone records of millions of Americans, the PRISM program accessing data from Google, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft, mass surveillance of internet communications, and bulk data collection without warrants. Public outrage follows, and nothing fundamentally changes. Why? Because by 2013, people were already dependent upon the platforms. The surveillance infrastructure is already the foundation of the current digital economy. And 2016 to present, extraction has been perfected. The same capabilities built for government surveillance now powers behavioral advertising, tracking everything you do to sell ads, algorithmic feeds, manipulating what you see to maximize engagement, dynamic pricing, charging you the maximum you'll pay based on your data, predictive analytics, knowing what you'll do before you do it, and social credit, determining your access to services based on behavior data. The Patriot Act created the legal and technical framework, and corporations perfected this framework for profit. How surveillance became extraction, the government built the foundation. Here's a legal framework that was presented. Normalized warrantless data collection. This framework established that privacy is conditional rather than guaranteed, and this created the precedence that national security justifies any intrusion. The technical infrastructure required backdoors in communication systems. They mandated data retention by service providers, and they created systems for real-time monitoring. And the cultural shift went from if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Surveillance as protection rather than intrusion. And privacy is suspicious. Transparency is virtue. That's literally our cultural norms now. Corporations monetize this. Once the infrastructure existed and the surveillance was normalized, corporations realized the economic potential. Google. We're collecting search data for better results, and that actually means we're selling the prediction of your behavior to advertisers. Facebook. We're connecting friends, which actually means we're harvesting social relationships to manipulate behavior at scale. Amazon. We're making shopping convenient, which actually means we're tracking everything you view, want, or consider to control what you see and what you pay. Apple. We're protecting your privacy, and what that actually means is we're building a walled garden where we surveil everything and take 30% of all transactions. The same capabilities, data collection without consent, the government required it, corporations normalized it. Behavior tracking, governments used it for security, corporations used it for profit. Predictive analytics, government identifies threats, corporations identify extraction opportunities. And there's no transparency or accountability. The government claims national security and corporations claim trade secrets. The extraction loop. The government requires surveillance infrastructure. The Patriot Act, FOIA, the USAMF, et cetera, et cetera. Tech companies built it. Backdoor data collection, monitoring. Companies realize that they can monetize the same data. Surveillance capitalism emerges as the dominant business model. Government and corporations share infrastructure and data, and then users have no choice. Opting out means opting out of modern life. Extraction accelerates as both sectors refine the systems. Why this matters for the architecture of extraction? The Patriot Act isn't just a civil liberties issue. It's the origin story of modern platform extraction. This normalized surveillance. Before 2001, the government shouldn't spy on citizens without warrants. After 2001, privacy is a luxury we cannot afford in a dangerous world. This cultural shift made corporate surveillance acceptable. If the government can track anything for security, then why can't companies track everything for better service? It built the infrastructure of extraction. The technical systems required for government surveillance became the foundation for targeted advertisement, behavioral manipulation, algorithmic control, predictive pricing, and the social credit system. Every surveillance capability built for national security found a corporate application optimized for extraction, and it created a legal precedent. The government position. We can collect data without warrants if it's relevant to national security. Corporate position. We can collect data without meaningful consent if it's in our terms of service. Both rely on the same logic. Your privacy is not a right. It's a privilege that can be provoked. And the Patriot Act proves that the model worked. The government demonstrated that mass surveillance is technically feasible at scale, legally defensible. Courts upheld the Patriot Act provisions. These are politically survivable. There's minimal lasting opposition, and they're culturally acceptable. Most people just adjusted to mass surveillance and forgot. Corporations learned, if governments can do this for security, we can do it for profit. The connection to platform extraction. Every extraction mechanism documented in the architecture of extraction relies on surveillance infrastructure that began with the Patriot Act. DoorDash and Uber Eats tracking your location, orders, and behavior. That was built on GPS surveillance and data collection frameworks established post 9/11. Amazon's dynamic pricing based on your browsing history. This uses predictive analytics developed for identifying security threats. Facebook and Instagram's algorithmic feeds optimized for engagement. This applies behavioral manipulation techniques refined in military psychological operations. Automated eviction systems and algorithmic hiring. This extends surveillance and automated decision-making from security to economic control. And AI systems making coverage, credit, and employment decisions. This scales surveillance capabilities from national security to every transaction. The Patriot Act didn't just enable government surveillance. It created the template and the infrastructure for corporate extraction at scale. What changed after 9/11? Before 9/11, privacy was assumed as a default. Surveillance was required, and they required warrants and probable cause. Data collection was limited and specific, and citizens could largely avoid monitoring. After 9/11, surveillance is default. Privacy must be actively protected, and often can't be. Data collection is bulk and continuous. Nothing to hide becomes the cultural norm. That's fucking crazy. I mean, think about it. That's literally what we say to one another. I ain't got nothing to hide. And opting out of surveillance means opting out of modern life. The Patriot Act normalized the idea that in exchange for security or convenience, we must accept total surveillance. Corporations simply replace security with better service and then use the same infrastructure for profit instead of policing. The current state. 23 years after the Patriot Act, we have government surveillance. The NSA still bulk collects communications data. The FBI still uses national security letters for warrantless data collection. ICE uses license plates readers and facial recognition without warrants. And local police departments use cell site simulators, or stingrays to monitor phones. Government surveillance is just like corporate surveillance. Google tracks 80% of global web traffic. Facebook monitors 3 billion people's social interactions. Amazon tracks purchasing behavior and uses Alexa for home monitoring. And every app harvests location, contacts, and behavior data. The infrastructure is the same. The justifications differ. The result is total surveillance optimized for control and extraction. Why we can't just use different apps. The surveillance infrastructure is now foundational to the digital economy. We can't use internet without being tracked. Google Analytics on 85% of websites. We can't use smartphones without location monitoring. This is required by the operating system. We can't access services without data harvesting. Terms of service mandate. And we cannot opt out without opting out of modern life. That means no access to education, employment, and banking. All those require digital participation. The Patriot Act didn't just authorize government surveillance. It created the legal and technical foundation for a surveillance economy where extraction is inescapable. The solution isn't technical, it's political. You can't solve this with better privacy settings or encrypted messaging. The infrastructure is too deep, the normalization is too complete, and the economic incentives are far too strong. Solutions require repealing or radically reforming the surveillance laws, including the Patriot Act provisions still in effect. This also includes mandating data minimization, collect only what's necessary, and it's deleted immediately after use. Banning behavioral advertisement. Surveillance-based business models are wrong and immoral. Establishing data as property. You own the data about you, and companies must consistently pay you for access to that data. Breaking up surveillance monopolies. You can't have privacy when 3 companies control all the platforms. Public alternatives to surveillance platforms, meaning digital public infrastructure. The Patriot Act shows that surveillance at scale is possible. The past 23 years showed that it's incredibly profitable. The question is whether we'll accept total surveillance and extraction as permanent, or whether we'll fight about to reverse it. The connection to the architecture of extraction. The Patriot Act is essentially the origin story to the extraction economy. It normalized surveillance as the acceptable price for security or convenience. It built the technical infrastructure that corporations now exploit, and it established legal precedent that privacy is conditional rather than guaranteed. This also proved that the model worked. Surveillance at scale is feasible and profitable, and it created the template for platform extraction across all sectors. When you order food through DoorDash and it tracks your location, monitors your ordering patterns, and uses your data to optimize pricing, that's a Patriot Act infrastructure deployed for corporate profit. When algorithmic systems deny your healthcare claim, reject your job application, or automatically evict you, that's surveillance and automated decision-making at scale from national security to everyday life. When you can't escape platform surveillance even when you want to, that's the normalization that began with, I don't have anything to hide. The architecture of extraction was built on the foundation of post 9/11 surveillance. And understanding one requires understanding of the other.